Welcome to the review of my May works. Well, for month of May I had a lot of plans and most of all I planned to color a lot of mermaids. But in the beginning of May, on May 1st, we had an Orthodox Easter, so we had some holidays after the Easter day. I visited family, I didn't color at all. Then I had short holidays on the Victory Day, so I didn't have a lot of time for coloring, and also I was a little bit lazy. Also, I was a little bit disappointed with the things on the channel because on some days it really felt like it's a total death of the channel. But I tried not to concentrate on bad things. So on May there were a lot of good things in my coloring, apart from quite small amount of pictures which I managed to color for Mermaid. Anyway, let's start from Australian Animals, which was my first May book. You know that I promised myself to finish this book one day, but my picture choice in May surprised even myself. I'm not a huge fan of frogs, but these frogs, I love them. I tried to find some information about these corabari frogs, and I found that they are relatively small, and I really love that they are so bright, so I decided that they are not frightening and they are even charming. That's why I decided to color them. And I started with Arteza pencils. I found that with a mix of Arteza and polychromasis it's possible to color on this not thick paper, but Arteza and polychromasis they do create some dust, some crumble on the paper, but at least they are able to cover white spots on the paper and to color even small details. On the tiny details like this sundew, I even used my peat pens, they were quite helpful. So here I mostly used Arteza and a little bit of polychromasis for those tiny red leaves beneath the legs of the frogs. As usual, the biggest problem was what to do with the background, so I used everything here. I tried to use alcohol-based markers, I didn't like the result, so on top of it I put a little bit of pastel colors, pastel blue, pastel green in gouache, and for the upper part I simply used soft pastel. I realized that I am tired of struggling with this background, and if to do animals or birds or other creatures and plants in this book it's interesting, to struggle with the background isn't so interesting, so I really try to do a very quick and simplified backgrounds. With my second selected image everything was much easier, because here I limited the background with this round frame. Again, for the bearded dragon I used mostly Arteza and only couple of polychromos pencils. I think that I do love this one better, mostly because here we have classic contrast of warm colors which I used for the body of the lizard, and cold colors because of these blue dampierra flowers. And apart from these more intense colors, I decided to do background in much more muted, calm colors, and here Derwent drawing set was very helpful for this light background, for the surface of the ground, for the stones. So background, again, nothing very beautiful, but at least it was quicker comparing to previous page, and flowers and lizard, I really enjoyed coloring them. I think that I decided that first I will do less interesting pictures, all those lizards, insects, frogs, because I still have to do another page with frog, and then I will switch to much more attractive creatures like kangaroo like platypus and other quokka and other fluffy creatures which I still need to color in this book. I already managed to do a lot of animals, birds and other creatures here, but still a lot of work ahead of me. Well, enough of this book, and now I have Johanna password here on the table. In May, I realized that when I got the book, I tested paper in it by applying on this page acrylic paint, then Neocolor crayons for this lilac blue purple water, then on top of it some shiny dots, and I also used a regular watercolor to create first a layer on the walls of this town, of this palace, and then I abandoned this page after testing. All paints, they behaved really well here, so I was happy how watercolors behaved, how neocolors behaved, but I didn't find enough patience to finish this page. But finally in May I realized that I want to finish it. So I added more contrast to the walls of the building, I added a little bit more color to the roofs of this beautiful palace. For this page I used polychromases. They behaved really well on this paper and on top of the watercolor also. Then I divided all fishes here into 3 groups. Fortunately it was possible to do it, and I tried to find some interesting color combos for them. For the first 3 fishes I selected colors which would be similar to the colors which I used on the palace, to connect in such way upper and lower part of the page, and then I simply tried to find some interesting color combos. You know that I love violet and lilac, so of course apart from using these colors in water, I also use them in fishes, and then I simply played with colors. As I said, everything made with polychromases and of course with Posca pen. And then when I have a little bit of time each day, when I wasn't very inspired to start something more complicated, bigger project, then I played with these smaller pictures. It's not totally nothing special here, but it's good that you can spend 15-20 minutes on coloring and to finish something. And of course these cakes there were indeed quite yummy, so it was fun to color. When I select such small image, I still try to invent some story behind this object, and it really helps me in selecting colors. Like this page, I imagined that here we have probably autumn, here we have morning time. Here I was thinking about beginning of the winter time, so that's why I select such colors. And by selecting the story, it's usually my first step in when I start to select colors for the new page. And finally I also did a couple of small pictures here on the cover. Well, I think that it would be better to color the same pictures on the back cover because of this pre-printed beautiful leaves and flowers covered by methyl paint. They were pressed into the surface of the paper, so it wasn't very comfortable to color here. But apart from that, I do love these 2 rows of miniature pictures. In each of the row I tried to use the same colors. It was interesting challenge for me to color using only limited amount of pencils, but I enjoyed it, so I think that maybe in June I will finish to do these remaining 3 elements, because all another elements they are repeating and I definitely won't be doing them, but these 3 small pictures I think that I will finish to color them. Good thing in May was that I continued to use my gouache paints. For Christmas I purchased a big set of Teresa gouache and I hadn't even swatched this set yet, but at least I started to use several colors and I'm quite pleased with these paints. I hope that in June I finally will do a video with the review with swatching and my opinion about these paints. But in May they were very helpful for me. When I started to color in this book, I selected pictures from the end of the book and I moved from the very end to the central part. But then I thought that I want to do this one. And as usual, I wanted one page and I finished to do another page because I looked properly at the left side and I realized that that's the page which is currently very inspiring for me. First I was thinking about a violet or intense blue background. Then I realized that typical traditional dress of Alice is blue, so for the background I need something different and I decided to do this beautiful wine red color, dark wine probably. And I realized that in my gouache set I have perfect color for such background. You know that gouache paint, it provides a matte surface, and in that set of Teresa gouache, apart from traditional gouache paint with matte finish, I also have several tubes of pearl-shade gouache and I decided to try using them together. So apart from a wine berry color, I also used coral pearl-shade color, coral pearl, sorry guys. And with this pearl coral, I did these vertical lines because I wanted to create impression of the Alice falling into the rabbit hole. I didn't want static image, but I wanted that movement, that falling will be visible on this page. So I used brush to create texture, visible vertical lines, and this pearl-shade paint looked really good on top of the matte paint. I decided that it's still not enough shining for me, so I sprinkled a little bit of fine-tech pearl-shade watercolor. I used bronze, I used pearl-shade lilac, and very quickly I got this very shiny, very simple, but quite nice background. Then I increased contrast using on top of the gouache one of the Star Joy pencils, and for the main image I mostly used color pencils and couple of polychromoses. I do love this difference of textures. Colors, they created a little bit of waxy shining, which is another good contrast to the matte surface of the background. This paper, I already mentioned that I am quite pleased how all pencil brands behaved here, starting from normal Prismacolors or polychromoses and going to the more budget pencils like Arteza or Star Joy pencils or Sucolor, Shuttle Art, Castle Art. All those pencils, they behaved really well here, so I decided that probably it will be my book for budget pencils. But watercolor, it's not the best choice in this book because it's second edition and there is a difference between this second edition and all my previous books like Escape to Oz, Escape to Shakespeare. This paper doesn't like watercolors, so gouache or acrylic definitely will be much better choice. And I was so pleased with this image that I decided that I want to do another one and to test more colors of my Arteza gouache. When I just got this book, I immediately fell in love with this spread, but I didn't know how to color the left side. It's a relatively big empty background and without a watercolor. I was thinking about neo colors, but then I decided that no, I want to use more of gouache, and now I think that it was a right choice. Even if the whole background looks yellow, I used a very pale yellow, then then middle yellow, a little bit of orange coral. I sprinkled it here to create something more less monotonous on the left page, and around the head of the Alice I added more ochre brown color to create darker halo around her head. For the flowers I used Star Joy pencils. They have a really nice selection of pink, salmon pink, and all the lilac and violet colors. For the hair and for some contrast on the background I used Color pencils. Most of all, I am proud here of the books. On the original image books they were empty, and in the very center of the page to have empty pages, such a big white object, it didn't look good. So I decided to add a little bit of shading on pages. Now they are quite well worn. I think that several generations of children in Alice family used those books, so now they are a little bit dirty, a little bit yellow. And I also added text on pages and even couple of images. I deliberately didn't make any particular images, just some areas of colors, like we have somewhere some small illustrations, but I really love the final look of those books. Now they look less flat, and I think that they created a nice detail here. That's all I want to say about this page, and I think that it will be one of the books which I will be using each month when I want to do something quick, and indeed it's quite quick to color in this book because of the size. And also it's a really good book for me to experiment more with different mediums and with unusual colors. And we will be moving to the book by Klara Markova. Here I selected a page with a mermaid for Mermaid. I even have prepared all the necessary pencils. Then I opened this book and I finished coloring this beautiful seahorse. It was quick work and I did it almost completely with polychromasis. Only for the background I used Prismacolors. And I enjoyed it, and I even learned a couple of interesting color combos like terracotta with pink. I enjoy those blue-violet together with magenta, but still I hadn't colored Mermaid. I hadn't colored Mermaid, and probably it will be one of the projects which I will put from my May plans to my June plans. But instead of the mermaid, I did another book, another page. I called it The Date Beneath the Moonlight, but somehow the moon was almost completely lost here. Maybe because of the quite intense color of the background which I did, and quite pale grey colors which I used for the moon. So I even had to use a little bit of quite bright yellow to emphasize the moon a little bit. But apart from this small problem with the moon, everything else I really enjoyed. Here I have 90% of polychromasis. Probably they are my favorite pencils on this paper, but I also used several unique colors from Prismacolors, like pale sage, like salmon pink or clay rose. Here I used quite simple but effective trick when the dress of the girl is so bright and create very beautiful contrast to the background color, so it immediately attracts the attention of the viewer and the girl. Both of them are the focal point of this page, and even if this page is very detailed with another couples of insects, still, the pair immediately caught your attention, and I think that it was good choice of such a bright yellow color for her dress. You know that I constantly tend to color in realistic way, so that's why I have very traditional green leaves, red berries, but at least here on these flowers I decided against coloring them as a simple dog rose with pink or with white colors, and instead I experimented and I did them with dark colors to support this atmosphere of the light evening probably. Anyway, I'm quite happy how everything turned out. It was quick coloring, I didn't have problems with any color choices, I didn't want to change everything. So I surprised myself because I was thinking that Clara Markova isn't a very easy style for me, that I would have difficulties with her pictures, but with each finished project I realized that I fall in love with these books more and more. So I definitely will be doing this Mermaid in June. Next, let's move about another very positive thing. In May, I realized that I totally abandoned my books by Kanoko Egusa. My last finished project in Kanoko's books was made in December. Then I decided to make a short break because I was afraid that I started to repeat colors. I colored a lot of her works in the end of the previous year, so I planned to do a short break. But instead I hadn't touched her books for 6 months, and I realized that I really miss them. And I was missing them so much that I finished 2 projects in May. I did this title page in Rhapsody in the Forest. From the very beginning I decided that I don't want to do any complicated background, that I want to concentrate more on the details. For the leaves I deliberately selected more muted green colors, nothing very bright. All green colors either are pastel or more to olive green, brown greens, and I hoped that it will help to create nice contrast to the pastel flowers and to the flowers with more intense colors. I also decided that another focal point will be this very cute bird, and I think that because of the orange color which I used on her feathers, it really helped to attract more attention there. At least I'm glad that I did another title page. You know that I have complicated relationship with title pages. Sometimes I don't know how to color them, sometimes I totally ruin them, and only several of my books have really nice title pages. But at least here I am glad that everything turned out exactly like I planned. A lot of muted colors and only couple of focal points with intense colors. In Manuel de Bonheur I found perfect spring spread. Here I have already finished my title page, so logical choice was to look at the next page, and it was perfect choice for the spring. I do love to color all the botanical elements provided by Kanoko Egusa, and usually I don't have problems with coloring her animals or birds either. Here it was a little bit difficult because we have so many details. Spread is really very detailed. I decided that I won't be doing anything inside of this frame, that it's already very detailed on the right, so maybe it will be easier to look if here we have something simple. So I simply filled in it with a soft pastel background. The rest of the picture is colored with Prismacolors. Even the background, the sky and grass, everything with Prismacolors. I enjoy coloring her flowers, even I always have problems with daffodils. Here I divided them into 2 groups. Some of them are yellow, some of them are white, to make background to be less monotonous, more interesting. But of course the most interesting part was to color all the birds and all the flowers on the forefront. And I think that I managed to do it. I was a little bit afraid that darklings and ducks they will be slightly lost. That's why instead of traditional grey and brown for the ducks, I decided to color them as male ducks. I decided to color them with brighter colors on the head, on the neck, and in such a way with this more intense blue-green feathers, they are not lost among the other elements on this page. Another technical difficulty was how to color cat, because part of the cat's face was hidden inside of the binding, but I managed to open it almost flat, and now my cat has a nice round face. I am very pleased with the spread, with the result, and it was time consuming. I think that I did 5 videos probably, or maybe even 6. Anyway, it was long, but I enjoyed doing it, and now I hope that I won't be abandoning Kanoko Egusa books for such a long time. I already put several of pictures into my nearest plans. Of course, in May I colored in Teresa Goodrich books. Maybe not as much as I wanted to, but at least I did picture in spring scenes and I did picture in Main Street. In spring scenes I finally found courage to do the page which I loved from the very beginning when I just got this book. This page with cafe and with beautiful wisteria in bloom immediately caught my attention, but I was afraid to start coloring it. Sorry guys. I will find it. Okay, so here I have this finished page. For more than a year I was afraid to start this page, but then in somewhere on Instagram I found inspirational photo. I'm sure that Teresa Goodrich was inspired by a beautiful place in Paris. It's quite famous restaurant and it has a very similar building, similar door and beautiful wisteria in bloom, so it's very popular place. And on Instagram people started to post pictures because now wisteria is in bloom, and I used those pictures as an inspiration for my own page. It was really very helpful. When I color in Teresa Goodrich books, I always try to think which colors I already used for the doors, for the window frames, for the walls. I color a lot and I really try not to repeat the same color combos many times, and I hope that here I managed to do it. That's why I selected quite intense turquoise blue and dark blue colors for the entrance to the restaurant, and the rest of the elements I colored in much more muted or pastel colors. Background is pastel, starting from pastel blue to the very pale green. Wisteria of course is colored with several pastel colors. Posca pens there were very helpful. I masked a lot of black lines to add to create more realistic look, to add more air to this page. So in the end I am really happy that I decided to do it and that everything turned really well. And the second page I did in totally different color palette. In Main Street I enjoy doing evening scenes when I can play with light and shadows. Again, when I select colors for the shops, for the buildings here, I try not to repeat myself. Yeah, I already did a lot of pictures here, so sometimes I repeat colors, but still. Here I managed to do green house, blue house, and couple of buildings with warmer colors for the walls. Most of all, I enjoyed the stage when I need to calculate all my sources of light, like these lamps or inner light coming from inside of the shops, how they will be reflecting on the elements that surround all those shops. And my least favorite part when I need to color small details inside of the shops. But I think that here everything turned out pretty well. At least I hope that I managed to create atmosphere of the late evening, but when shops are still are working, and I do love this warm yellow light which I put everywhere on this page. I hope that soon everything again will be open, all shops will be open, so it was a nice thought when I did this page. Well, I hoped to color more in spring scenes because it's already time probably to switch to country garden or maybe country charm where I have a lot of pictures with gardens in bloom, but we will see. I think that at least one page in spring scenes I definitely will do even in June. And finally, let's talk about results of my mermaid. Early in the beginning of this year, I promised myself that I will try to start at least a couple of new coloring books each month because I have a lot of beautiful books which I hadn't touched yet. Good thing is that in May I managed to maintain my promise and I started books with mermaids. This one is Fantasy Mermaids. It's by Color Mood, and definitely it's the best coloring book about mermaids among all those which I own. I have books by Jasmine B, Griffith, by Selina Fanning, by Martin Noble, by Anastasia Koldereva, but I still prefer pictures by Dennis Klett, but I still prefer pictures in this book, most of all because of the compositions. Here you definitely don't have to think about empty backgrounds like in Dennis Klett or in Selina Fanning books, and girls, they are so nice. Speaking about quality of the paper is similar to Creative Haven paper. It's definitely better comparing to self-published books like Create Space, like Nice Little Town. No, this paper for me is better. Not much, but still with pencils it behaved much better. And we have all unique pictures. We don't have repeated pictures in this book. So in front of me I have a lot of mermaids. I decided that the easiest choice will be to start from the very beginning. To test various pencils on this paper, I decided that even the background I will do with pencils, and I selected Star Joy pencils as my first choice. You know, it's a budget set, it has a nice color selection, they are harder comparing to my other pencils, they are nicely pigmented, and they managed to cover this paper pretty well, even if in the end when I did this upper part of the background my hand started to feel that it's hard, that it's tired a little bit, again mostly because of the hardness of these pencils, but color selection in Starjoy set is really good. I also added a little bit of Prismacolor Pale Sage here on the upper part to create impression of rays of light coming from the upper part through the surface of the water and surrounding the figure of the mermaid. Then when I moved to the lower part of the background, I decided that if I want to color with something softer, probably I can test my Sucolor pencils. Sucolors, Shuttle Art, Castle Art, the same. Brutfuner pencils, they are all the same. And I use them here on the shape and on the stones. I selected them because I really love their muted violet and grey colors. Also nice colors for the corals and other seaweeds. My biggest problem, as usual, is which colors to use for the tail and for the hair of the mermaid, and here I decided that the simplest decision will be again to use blue-green and light green colors, but with more intensity comparing to how I use them on the background. And I think that in the end everything looks quite nice together. The good thing is that probably it's possible to use gouache paints or acrylic paints on this paper with moderate amount of water, but because of the very detailed designs, it's also quite easy possible to cover the whole background with pencils only. And I was so pleased with the first finished picture that I immediately started another one. Here I decided to test my alcohol-based markers, so I grabbed my set by Winsor & Newton Pro Markers, set specially designed for the light skin tones, but here I used it for doing this old marble arch. On top of the alcohol-based markers, I added some color accents with pastel yellow, muted pink, grey pink colors using pencils. The main image mostly done with color pencils, the whole background, all the corals, seaweeds. Only on the mermaid I added a little bit of polychromasis. Again, I had a lot of doubts which colors to use for her tail, but in the end I think that everything turned quite nice. I was a little bit disappointed with her hair. They were slightly lost because of the similar colors on the background, a lot of pink and variations of pink colors everywhere on the page. But then I realized that the focal point here isn't the mermaid, but maybe the reflection of the mermaid in the mirror. And when I used a very light blue, considerably lighter comparing to the color of the water inside of the mirror, I realized that probably this page won't be the total disaster, and in the end I quite like this result. I got rid of some of the black lines on the building, on the marble using Posca, and I think that I did quite nice starting this book. At least I enjoyed doing both pictures. After that I started another one of my books. I think that I own it already for 6 months. I wanted this book for the last Mermaid, then I think that I purchased it last autumn probably, and I hadn't touched it. Finally I decided that it's time, and again I thought that maybe the first page can be the easiest choice, because I do love each and every page here. But this choice wasn't such an easy task as I thought in the beginning. I did love the face of the mermaid, and when I started to color I did pretty nice start with the dark colors of the background with her hair, but then when I moved to the lower part I realized that it's extremely detailed page. As usual, when I color in Jasmine B's Griffith books, I try not to copy her original colors. I try not to look at the original painting. But here it was a little bit difficult to understand all the creatures, all those shells, crabs, and other elements which we have on the lower part. Maybe it wasn't best work of transforming her painting into line art, or maybe it was just my problem. So I was a little bit preoccupied that I wasn't able to color all the shells and creatures here. But then I decided to concentrate more on color balance, that the figure of the mermaid, her face, still will be the focal point of the page. And in the end, I do love this work. I can't say that it was easy for me, but result is not bad, and I am pleased that finally I started this book. I think that I hadn't touched books by Jasmine B Griffith also for more than 6 months. Now I have her full collection, all 4 of her books, and I definitely need to pay them more attention because I love them. I love paper, I love her style, and usually I enjoy coloring them But here I had some struggle with the small details and with the color choice. Unfortunately, it was like a breaking point for me in Mermaid, and after that I hadn't started any other pictures with a Mermaid. Maybe after a week of coloring something else, I will return to all those Mermaid pictures which I planned for myself, and I will continue in June. Well, thank you for listening, thank you for watching. As usual, huge thanks to all members of my channel, to those who support me on Patreon. I hope that in June I will try to offer something interesting. Maybe I try to return to the books by Hannah Carson, which I abandoned in May. It's difficult to make choice, but I hope that I will find something interesting. Thanks for watching. I hope that you had perfect springtime, that you had good weather, and that June also will be very pleasant.